My next patron question is from Graham, who would like to know my thoughts on some news regarding a major cartoon character. Recently, Disney has lost the film rights to Roger Rabbit, and the copyright has reverted to the character's original author, Gary K. Wolfe. Do you think it's possible for Roger Rabbit to make a comeback? A sequel to the original film is clearly impossible, but do you think it's possible to create more theatrical shorts just about Disney's involvement, or an expansion into other media? For those of you who may have missed that news story, Gary K. Wolfe, who wrote the book Who Censored Roger Rabbit, which inspired the movie Who Framed Roger Rabbit, recently revealed that he has gone back the rights to his characters from Disney. How did this happen, especially from a company that's so protective of their intellectual property? It turns out there's a clause that allows the rights that writers license to another party, like a film studio, to revert back to the original creator after 35 years. Wolfe first sold the film rights to Disney around the time of the book's publication in 1981, and then the movie was released in 1988, so the possibility of him getting back the rights then became possible. Now, Wolfe did not do this out of some dislike for Disney. Wolfe was a huge fan of the film adaptation and even found many of the alterations to his book to be improvements. He also made clear that Disney has often treated him very well over the years, although he did sue them in the early 2000s over unpaid royalties, which he ultimately won. The thing is, they've not really done much of anything with Roger since they stopped producing animated shorts with the character, along with a supporting cast like Jessica Rabbit and Baby Herman. There were a number of attempts to produce a sequel and even a prequel. Scripts were written, Alan Menken devised a couple of songs, and test footage was produced featuring a computer-animated Roger. However, none of the film was never greenlit. The theme park ride, Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin, did open at Disneyland in 1994 and Tokyo Disneyland in 1996. Both rides are still operating today, although there have been a few tweaks here and there. Roger also recently made a cameo in the Chippendales Rescue Rangers movie, which could almost be considered a spiritual successor. Otherwise, what Disney once saw as a significant character they would use for many years was barely given attention by Michael Eisner's successors. One important factor, though, is that Disney needed Steven Spielberg to sign off on any new movies or shorts with the character. While there was a period in the 2010s when Disney and Spielberg had a production deal, that still is not enough to get the ball rolling on a new project. Gary K. Wolfe even once tried to pitch an animated movie starring both Roger Rabbit and Mickey Mouse, but Disney decided to pass on it. Now, it's worth mentioning that Wolfe does not own the rights to Who Framed Roger Rabbit, which will always be the property of the Walt Disney Company. So while he now has the rights to the characters he created, that obviously does not include characters made specifically for the movie. So he can use Roger, Eddie Valiant, Jessica Rabbit, and Baby Herman, but not Judge Doom, who was created by the film's screenwriters Jeffrey Price and Peter S. Seaman, and is thus wholly owned by Disney. So what does he plan to do? Well, he has mentioned interest in making a film adaptation closer to his book and a movie centered on Jessica. He has said that the studio he would most like to collaborate on these potential projects on is Disney. Yes, despite getting the rights back to his characters, he still wants any new productions to be made at Disney, as well as bring in a lot of the original team like Robert Zemeckis, Steven Spielberg, and Charles Fleischer. Sadly, the one major creative mind who would not be able to come back for any possible Roger Rabbit project is animation director Richard Williams, who passed away in 2019. However, a lot of the original animators are still around, and I'm sure they would love to come back and work on a new movie or short featuring the character, most notably Andreas Deja, who is Roger's principal animator. Working with Disney would also allow any new project to use characters created specifically for the film, as well as their own stable of tunes. If Disney would even be interested in pursuing a new Roger Rabbit project is the real question. Like I said, the Bob Iger-led regime did next to nothing with Roger, but maybe whatever successor he chooses might be more open. But let's say Wolfe goes the independent route. It would need to be something that maintains the high quality set by the previous movie and shorts, something Wolfe himself has said. I'm sure there's a filmmaker out there with a vision who could do something interesting with it. He could even go directly to Spielberg himself. I'm actually surprised, after he recently revived Animaniacs and Tiny Toon Adventures, he did not partner with Disney to make new Roger shorts for Disney+. Like I said before, Wolfe's plan is to make a more faithful adaptation, so a new project will be about comic strip characters rather than tunes. This might create confusion with viewers who only know Roger as a toon, but he would still be an animated character, just with the occasional speech and thought bubbles over his head. Would any of these potential Roger Rabbit projects take off and find success? If they can maintain the high bar of what came before. Although I sometimes think about a comment associate producer Don Hahn said many years ago that in this day and age of Hollywood making sequels and other new iterations of their 80s hits, it's refreshing that Who Framed Roger Rabbit exists as one singular movie with no sequel. And he's not wrong. But maybe Gary K. Wolfe could do something interesting with his creation. We'll see what he comes up with. Thank you for your question, Graham.